Starting off with some breaking news on top of News Night, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has spoken with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Taking to X, Jaishankar said, and I'm quoting him here, good conversation with Secretary Rubio. Jaishankar goes on to say, discuss trade, minerals, defense, new cooperation. And remember, this of course comes, this conversation between Dr. S. Jaishankar and Marco Rubio comes a day after the new US envoy to India, Sergio Gore, said that no other country is more essential than India, perhaps hinting at a trade deal between the United States of America and India at this point of time. This conversation today between New Delhi and Washington, D.C. also comes at a time when Trump has issued tariffs against countries who trade with Iran. But the latest coming in is that Dr. S. Jaishankar has spoken with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, saying that had a good conversation on various sectors. To decode this further, my colleague Aditya is now joining me live. Aditya, tell us more about this conversation between Dr. S. Jaishankar and the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Well, Raisha, this is coming at a very important and a critical time. This is coming at a time when the trade negotiations between India and United States are underway. You rightly pointed out that Trump has announced 25% tariffs for any country indulging in trade with Iran. Now, India does indulge in trade with Iran, but it is significantly lower than many other countries. So I don't think India needs to worry too much about that front. But at the same time, the critical areas that have been discussed are critical minerals, technology, of course, nuclear cooperation between countries, defense ties, and the big elephant in the room, that is trade. There's not much that has been announced on the possible trade deal between India and United States, but the conversation is very important. It also comes hours after India's top minister Ashwini Vaishnav was in Washington, D.C. to attend the G7 meeting on critical minerals as well, where India, South Korea, Australia, Japan and others were invited as well. So it's a very important, a statement coming in, conversation we do not know details of yet, but could this be a precursor of something big that could be underway in the next few weeks? We'll have to wait and watch.
Right, absolutely. Could this be a precursor to something big? Aditya, stay with us. We'll come back to you in just moments from now. And shifting our focus to Iran now, after the war of words and all the threats being issued between Washington, D.C. and Tehran, US President Donald Trump has said that he's rather given his assurance. He has told Iranian demonstrators to keep protesting and said that help is on its way. Let me read out that tweet for you that he took to his Truth Social handle. Trump says, Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have cancelled all my meetings with Iranians until the senseless killings of demonstrators stops. He further added that help is on its way. Now, at this point of time, there is no clarity if US would militarily intervene in Iran, which is rather grappled with one of its worst demonstrations. Now, let's tell you what all has Trump said so far, what all has been announced. Earlier today, Trump announced 25% import tariffs on goods from any country doing business with Iran. Trump has also said that more military action is among options he is weighing to punish Iran over the crackdown. Earlier this month, Trump also said, we are locked and loaded. Well, to decode all that's happening in Iran and the statements from the United States of America, my colleagues Aditya and Vishal are now joining me live. Aditya, over to you first. What do you make when Trump says help is on its way? Is he perhaps hinting at strikes, if I may, at Iran?
Well, Raisha, it is certainly a big statement coming in diplomatically or militarily speaking. We do not know, of course, as you rightly pointed out, whether the United States will militarily intervene or not. I've been speaking to a lot of people from the Israeli diplomatic community who have been assessing the intelligence from Iran. They say that a regime change is not possible or imminent at this particular stage. There has been a division of thought within the White House and the national security community in the United States as well. There's one section that believes that immediate and imminent military limited strikes are essential for the United States and Iran because this is a big opportunity, perhaps one opportunity in a lifetime. And secondly, there's another section that believes that we need to wait and let the organic protests continue until it reaches a boiling point. Now, what is that boiling point where US will be forced to intervene needs to be seen. But currently, what I can tell you is that some estimates claim, we do not have a verification or authenticity to this, but some human rights groups are claiming that 10 to 12,000 people have been killed, several others have been arrested, and there's a brutal crackdown that's underway from the Iranian regime against the innocent protesters. So we'll have to certainly wait and watch how things unfold. Iranian foreign minister has said that he's ready for a negotiation and dialogue with the United States, but the Trump tweet or the Trump social media post is clear that no negotiations will happen, no talks will happen, they have been cancelled, and now he's urging the protesters to continue and take over the institutions in Iran.
Right, Aditya. Vishal, coming to you, how do you think Iranians will respond to this? We have a few statements coming out of the top Iranian officials with the Iranian chief saying that Iran is all ready to fight with the United States of America. I also have with us Dr. James Dorsey and Nick Harper. Welcome to NDTV. But Vishal, over to you first. Share your thoughts with us. How will Iran respond?
There's many ways this can play out. The first one, of course, is US strikes Iran, the traditional, air strikes that go through, and that results in the protesters, falling behind these strikes and, taking up arms and, toppling the regime. But if that doesn't happen, Iranian regime itself has millions of protesters that can also backfire. That plan can backfire, and the anti-protesters can take the streets because they are in the number of millions. So that can go both ways if the strikes happen. So Trump will be skeptical as to how he wants to play this out. He has seen in the recent past that Iran has been quite, resolute in responding to US. It has already said that there will be some strikes on the US side if US goes through with its plan. So we'll have to wait for confirmation as to what exactly the US would do.
Right. Thanks, Vishal. Coming to you, Dr. James Dorsey, you're a journalist and West Asia expert. With these statements coming out, Trump saying help is on its way, and the Iranian chief saying that we are ready to fight with the United States of America at this point of time, do you think that a conflict will spread across West Asia? Do you think that the strike by the United States of America on Iran at this point of time is imminent?
First of all, we don't know what help on the way means. The Trump administration has multiple options in terms of how it may want to respond to Iranian repression of the protests. Those include not only military operations. Trump essentially likes big theoretical military operations, one-off operations in which he can declare immediate victory. That's not going to happen in Iran. On top of which, there is a significant threat or risk that if Trump intervenes militarily, you get a political vacuum in which the country risks descending into violence and chaos and anarchy the way we saw in Syria. And that's something that potentially could spread to the rest of the Middle East. Also, the last thing to keep in mind is there are no U.S. or Iranian targets in Iran. For Iran to retaliate, it has to retaliate elsewhere.
Right, and just a few days ago, the president Pezeshkian said that Israel and U.S. legitimate targets in the area, but we'll wait and have to see how Iran responds. Coming to you, Nick, there's a big question mark on what help on its way actually means. According to you, you're joining us live from Washington, D.C. What does U.S. intervention look like, and what are you hearing from the MAGA base on this?
Well, yeah, tense hours ahead here in Washington, D.C. as we wait to find out what the U.S. president might be weighing up. But we are told that various very strong options are on the table. However, the White House, even in the last day, has been saying that really diplomacy is, they hope, the priority. They would like to use that ahead of any military action. But this latest statement from the US president that help is on its way, a very oblique statement. It's not clear exactly what he means by that. Could it be some sort sort of intervention? Could it be military action? That in itself is not clear. But we are hearing that the Vice President, J.D. Vance, has been pushing this idea of diplomacy. But part of the problem is that now Donald Trump is saying in this social media post that he is cancelling all meetings with any Iranian officials, even those back-channel meetings that were reportedly taking place between Iran's foreign minister and the US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff.
Right, Nick, and of course, Trump has said that I've cancelled all my meetings with the Iranian officials. I also want you to pick on the statement by the White House where they've said that nobody knows what Trump is going to do except President Trump. Of course, the million-dollar question being, will Trump actually go all the way and attack Iran at this point of time militarily?
Well, it's so hard to tell. I mean, that's exactly it. We do not know what the US president is thinking, not just Donald Trump, but really any president. This is always the case, that his advisors would really present him with a menu of options, different things that he could consider, any action against any country. But it's then up to the US president. He is the only person that can make the decision. As we saw with Venezuela just over a week and a half ago, there had been weeks, months of ramping up, increased deployments to the Caribbean. But it was up to the US president to make the final decision on whether or not to carry out military action against Venezuela. And that'll be the same case here with Donald Trump. It's up to him. I think just something worth bearing in mind. It's now about 8:30 in the evening in Tehran. Often, if the United States takes action against another country, as they did with Tehran last summer when Israel and the US struck the nuclear facilities, that was something that took place during the nighttime hours. So as we head into the nighttime in Tehran, there is perhaps that increased possibility that the US, if it were to act militarily, may choose that window of opportunity to do so.
Right, Nick. Coming to you, Aditya. Iran, a short while ago, said that we are prepared to fight a war with the United States of America and that we had a unique experience during the 12-day war with Israel. If perhaps there is any kind of military intervention by the United States of America, how do you see the situation panning out and perhaps impacting West Asia?
Well, there are certainly two ways of thinking at it. One, of course, the most obvious, that any kind of a military strike will look at an escalation because we can't just take the Iranians lightly. Be it the IRGC forces, be it the Basij forces, they're prepared, and they're prepared for this day for years together. But we did see Hezbollah falling down the way they did in Lebanon. Will Iran, face a similar situation? I doubt that. While it is being said that sanctions is another option, but in such a fluid situation where there's escalation and statements coming every hour and the violence only growing further down in Iran, it does seem that the protesters down on ground expect the US to intervene in some form or the other. There's another version coming in from the Israelis. Israelis would be anticipating this as a golden opportunity to, in fact, de-seat the Iranian regime, whether that is, physically possible or not, and who would really take the charge once the Iranian regime, either flees the country or are, taken away from there. So there are multiple layers that are, need to be looked into diplomatically and militarily speaking. A military strike won't be easy. There are statements that have come from Russia and China as well. We do know that Iran has military ties with Russia as well as Iran. Russia has said that, the kind of statements that have been coming in of a military strike or intervention are unacceptable completely. China with a similar tone. So this could lead to a global conflict if at all there is a military strike yet again in the Middle East. And we've seen the worst in the last 3 to 4 years. So it's unexpected. Just like Nick mentioned, we cannot go to the magic wand and see how Trump would really declare a military strike in the next few hours. It could be pressure tactics as well. There could be some kind of a backroom negotiation that is still underway. We'll have to perhaps wait for the next few hours.
Right. Coming to you, Nick, do you think all that's happening in Iran right now is more towards a regime change that the Iranians are looking for? Because the protests that we're seeing this time is also different because they are the bazaris, the traditional merchants who are a part of these protests who were previously perhaps allies of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. How do you see that? And is that one of the major aims of Trump, who is also saying that we will intervene in Iran?
There's little doubt that the events in Iran are going to lead to change.
What we do know is that the level of protests is something that has not been seen in Iran. And I think really that is part of the sentiment on the streets, that we are seeing intense sentiment against the government. The Iranians there would love change. The United States, we know, also would love change. But really, is that Donald Trump's ultimate goal? Does he want regime change? That in itself, I think, is unclear. And to pick up what the last commentator just said, so often it is a case of pressuring from the US president. It's very much a tactic that he uses not just with foreign policy, with geopolitics, but with trade, with business as well. He loves to pressure the other side, to add threat upon threat in the hope that the other side backs down, or at least does what he wants without him having to go to the military option, the end option. So it may be that he is just hoping that with another social media post, another push against the Iranian regime, he may be able to effect change without going all the way to deciding that his military needs to get involved.
Right, Nick. Sorry, Dr. Joshi, coming to you now. Like what Nick highlighted, that does Trump want to see regime change in Iran, or is this all about power tactics, with the statements coming out that help is on its way, and he's rather urging the Iranians to burn down the institutions and come out on the streets? Your thoughts on this?
There's a growing consensus that the Iranian government, the regime, will not be able to solve its problems without some sort of understanding with the United States. It may and that includes elements within the Iranian government itself. And it may very well be that these are pressure tactics, including cutting off all contacts with the Iranian officials at that point, in the belief that the government is in a corner. It at best can buy time by repressing the protests. It's incapable of resolving the fundamental economic issues without a lifting of the sanctions, or at least some economic breathing space. And that's not going to be created without an understanding with the Trump administration.
Right, coming to you, Nick. We have been hearing statements from Russia and, of course, China backing Iran at this point of time. How do you see that panning out at this point of time?
Well, that in itself is not surprising. Those ties were already in place. I mean, it's very similar to what we saw, that international criticism coming a week and a half ago when the US launched that action against Venezuela, when they captured the then president, Nicolas Maduro. We saw both Russia and China coming out very forcefully, Russia in particular, signaling its concern. And I think that's really what we're seeing once again here, a two-part attempt by Russia and China to show their support for Iran, but also to show their criticism of the United States, to do what they can to push back against Donald Trump and the Trump administration. It's really a case of if the US were to go ahead with military action, would Russia and China in some way decide to respond? Perhaps they might help the Iranians, but would they themselves want to get dragged into that? That seems less likely, but it is an interesting dynamic to consider as we enter into this potentially fraught period, and whether or not it extends to the wider region.
But absolutely. Coming to you, Dr. Dorsey, the same question. How do you see the situation panning out in West Asia specifically? We saw the dynamics evolving when there was war, the Israel versus Iran war lasted, the 12-day war. But right now with China and, of course, Russia backing Iran, and the United States of America being adamant that they will perhaps have any kind of intervention in Iran, how do you see all of this panning and evolving in the times to come?
I think the U.S. military options are relatively limited. To be fair, there are significant numbers of U.S. troops, warplanes, what have you, in the Middle East, particularly in the Gulf. But the Gulf states will not want to see the United States attacking Iran from their soil. So at this point, the United States would be incapable, without the movement of an aircraft carrier group to the region, which is currently not present in the region, to carry out a sustained operation.
Right, Dr. Dorsey, I'm afraid we're running out of time. But thank you so much, Dr. Dorsey and Nick Harper, for joining us here on Newsnight and sharing the insights with us on this. All right, we have some breaking news for you. Iran's defense minister has now said that we will respond powerfully to any kind of attack against us, and we will not allow anyone to threaten us. He further says all US bases in the region and countries that facilitate Washington's actions will be legitimate targets for us. Remember, this comes after the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian clearly said that US and Israel military centers are legitimate targets. He goes on to say, thanks to the measures we have taken, our defense situation is in good condition compared to the last war. Now, when he says last war, he clearly means the Iran versus Israel war, which happened last year for a matter of 12 days.